Donald Trump got a rude awakening as he was rejected resoundingly by the Supreme Court, yet again in a case where he was already rejected by the Supreme Court. And it's not just any case, it's the federal case where Donald Trump was found civilly liable for sexually assaulting E. Jean Carroll in order to pay about $5 million to E. Jean Carroll in connection with the sexual assault and the defamation, which were both included in that case. Donald Trump lost his appeal to the Second Circuit Court of Appeal after losing a jury trial. He then tried various machinations of appealing, this appeal stayed, finally went up to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court wouldn't even hear the case and rejected Donald Trump's petition for certiorari to even potentially hear the case in the first place. And that's it. You're done. Like when that happens, you go away, the case is over. And that's why E. Jean Carroll eventually was given the money that was being held in escrow. And then Donald Trump complained and he's like, it turns out she's putting her money in the S&P and the S&P may crash. She can't put her money there. It's like her money, man. It's not your money. You lost. You were found liable for sexually assaulting her. It's her money. What are you're angry that she's investing her money in the S&P? That shows the kind of predatory behavior. But anyway, after Donald Trump lost before the Supreme Court, he didn't accept the loss. Sound familiar? And so what Donald Trump did is something that no one's ever done, like other than maybe like a pro se plaintiff who files the most frivolous of documents in the world. He went back to the Supreme Court and like, okay, I know you rejected and denied my petition for certiorari, so you won't even hear the case for oral argument. But can I ask you again? And if I do lots of social media posts about it, may that convince you? And they just, in a one sentence order, said no. They just combined it in a list of all of the cases for rehearings that they were denying. Puckett versus Anjim Inc., Verizon Communications versus FCC, Donald Trump versus E. Jean Carroll. Just a list that goes down. Rehearings denied. And so Donald Trump losing twice. And now also, I mean, if you're E. Jean Carroll, you've got some thinking to do, because Donald Trump's behavior, its maliciousness, in my opinion, also gives rise to lots of other claims and causes of action. He's continued to harass and threaten her. He's continued to defame her, in my opinion. I think she has other defamation cases that are essentially, in my view, stipulated liability cases, because they're basically predicated on the same defamation he's already been found liable for. So in my view, it just becomes a matter of damages. And arguably, it's, to me, more damages than, remember, she also won another defamation case. Remember when Alina Habba played lawyer? The first one, you had Joe Tacopino as the lawyer. And I think obviously Trump engaged in horrific conduct from a purely lawyer view. Watching a lawyer, Tacopino, I'm not trying to compliment in any way Trump or whatever. Tacopino did a good job keeping the damages to $5 million in terms of what a civil defense lawyer could do in that situation. Alina Habba then did the other case that was just based on defamation, that didn't have the sexual assault allegations, but just defamation. And that's a case where Trump was found liable for $93 million. And there's another petition before the Supreme Court on that, which, in my opinion, the Supreme Court's also going to reject. And Donald Trump will probably beg for another rehearing after losing when that one goes before it. But in my personal opinion, Donald Trump's defamatory conduct against her while being in office, while holding the presidency, is arguably more damaging in terms of a defamation case, using his Truth Social platform with all of that. And then let's not forget, he went after her criminally, launched criminal investigations into her and into people who helped finance her case. And in my view, you combine that together, I mean, she's got a heck of a defamation case, malicious prosecution case, government harassment type of case. I want to bring in Harry Litman from the Talking Feds YouTube channel, Talking Feds Substack, and Talking Feds podcast. Now, Harry, E. Jean Carroll, in my view, is a hero on a lot of different levels. I think she also demonstrates, though, the paradigm of when you fight back, you win against Donald Trump. And I think there were a lot of people who can watch her and see Trump threw everything at her while in office, before office, and she stood her ground and she beat him. And that's because the facts and the law were on her side, but she didn't back down. And I've always said, if E. Jean can do it, and this is what she says, others should be inspired by her template. Roberta Kaplan's a great lawyer and law firm that represents her as well. What do you make of this, though, Harry? And you see him flail. It just reminds me of Strait of Hormuz. It reminds me of 90 deals, he flails, he gets flustered, he panics. And that's why I call this sometimes Trump, he does. His behavior is reflective of a panic, scared, scattershot kind of loser, Harry. What do you make of it all?
Really, it's like a Warner Brothers cartoon where he more and more like revs up and when he's over the cliff. The first thing is, Trump doesn't know the first thing about the law. He's just a blusterer who's always used it as a bully kind of club. And he actually thinks that, I put Kavanaugh and Barrett and Gorsuch there, they'll vote for me. The actual denial, I know it made the headlines, but this is something that everybody understood was happening. You showed us the list there, and the court will put out 3 such lists during the summer. And when you're reading over the list, you go through all the sort of first half, then you get to petitions for rehearing that are just like this. Never. The last time was something like 1967 that the Supreme Court granted one of these. But you have, some IFP, prisoner folks who actually file about half the petitions in the Supreme Court, though very, very few are granted. And then I think maybe some private practitioners who get milk some fees out of a final petition for rehearing, but they are DOA. But Trump just doesn't understand that. He's got no sense whatsoever. And I think it is, as you say, he loses and he just kind of gets more, flails more and red in the face and thinks that will do it. All he's got is the bully's playbook. But he's done okay with the Supreme Court. But what he didn't understand is once he lost that last one, it was over. No way they were going to do a petition for rehearing. Okay, but now on to E. Jean Carroll. You're right. She had dignity and she had composure. And, she wrote this in the book and revealed it. He didn't have to go and lie about it and deny it and call her ugly and all these things and defame her on the White House lawn. And that's what made her, she's not doing it for the money. She's going to donate the money to charity she suggested. And after the second one comes in, you're right. She could keep filing and filing and filing. He just, is incapable of stopping himself. But, she wants to live also, and she's in her 80s and, doesn't want to have her whole last decade be nothing but Trump. But it's really true. The sort of contrast between the flailing was an excellent word as you use. The more he, gets in a hole, the more he actually, tries to maneuver and keep going with no understanding of what the legal system is. And so the contrast of someone approaching him with composure, she was, the jurors completely believed her. She was credible. And that means that the story that he's told from the start, that I don't even know this woman, is made up, all the jurors just disbelieve that this little wrinkle that he tries to make a big deal of is whether they specifically found rape, and under the statute, they didn't have to find rape. They could find rape or sexual assault. And so finding one, they didn't go forward. And the judge anyway said that they found rape, as that term is used in common parlance. But there's just such a stark contrast anytime he is up against, this was also the case with certain world leaders, with Merkel or the Canadian prime minister these days. He just looks like a total rube. And when he's, face to face with some measure of cool and dignity, it's like he unravels completely. Anyway, the bottom line, if I just want to add this little point as your resident Supreme Court nerd, having clerked there a couple years, this was, never, ever, ever you could indulge any thoughts you have about Alito and Thomas and how much they are in bed with him. A petition for rehearing in this case that didn't in the first place present any kind of interesting legal issue. It was always going nowhere, and it has a certain prominence in the news only because it's Trump and Carroll, and really only because Trump just keeps trying and trying and trying. And this really is the end of the road. When people act like him on the IFP side, the Supreme Court will sometimes say, you can't even file any more petitions, buddy, unless we give you special dispensation. I don't think they're going to do that to Trump, but that's the kind of, desperado as a litigator that he has proven himself to be.
Harry, I couldn't agree more with you there. And I think at the end of the day, we're going to follow to see, I wonder in terms of her litigate, she's $93 million in the other case, $5 million here. With interest, you could be talking about in the hundreds of millions. So, for her, does she need to go through kind of a round 3 and what does that look like? And do you do that again? Certainly, in my opinion, has the case. And again, I think in a lot of the Trump fire hose of craziness that happens, we forget sometimes about people like her.
Yeah, right.
And we should know that it's more than just a line, and it's more than just a story that's rooted in Donald Trump losing. It's a story rooted in the courage of a survivor who stood up to her assailant, to this predator, and prevailed, and against all odds went up through all the appeals and stood her ground and showed up at the trial when Trump was too weak and didn't show up and ran away to Europe and said that he was building something in Scotland or whatever. And she was there, and she showed a template of how you respond in these times. So that's something that we'll always remember, Eugene.
And she did just one more word for her. She testified, and I'm sure it's true, that after this episode, it totally screwed up her life. She couldn't engage in relationships. This was really damaging. So it made it all the more impressive that she could stand firm, stay cool, stay elegant, present that contrast with Donald Trump, who's the opposite of all those things, and obviously impress a jury 2 times.
First witness shows up that makes or breaks the case. Trump's lawyers, he has unlimited resources to hire, whether it's a Takapina, who's known as a good lawyer. I didn't like his behavior in the case, but he's known as a very good litigator. Alina Habba, not a good lawyer, but heck, if you believe Donald Trump's world, she's the best. So just take his word that she's the best, even though, of course, she isn't. But he had the resources to throw this and to throw everything he could. And she and E. Jean Carroll testified, looked the jury in the eyes, stood there while Donald Trump ran away and wouldn't even show up really for some of the key portions of the trial. And the jury saw his behavior in the courtroom. Everybody subscribe to Harry Litman's YouTube channel. It's called Talking Feds. Leave a comment for Harry that you watch him on the MeidasTouch network. And it's called Talking Feds. So when this video ends, go over there. Thanks, Harry.
Thanks, Ben.
Hey, if you want the full story, how democracy got here and how we take it back, pre-order our new book, WTF America, today. Just scan the QR code or click the link in the description. Let's do this.